Welcome to the beginning of a transformative journey. This audio will guide you through the complexities of the human mind, inviting you to a conscious immersion into your own depths. Take a moment to relax and prepare for an exploration that will reveal the hidden power within you. Before we dive in, if this audiobook resonates with you and you value this content, we extend an invitation to support our work and join our community. We would love for you to leave a comment to tell us where you're listening from, to give us a like, and to consider subscribing for future explorations of wisdom. Now, prepare to relax your mind and open yourself to an inner journey where ancient wisdom meets the shadows of your own imagination. This audiobook is designed to accompany you on a deep immersion. In a world saturated with noise, constant distractions, and an incessant search for happiness in the external, the promise of inner serenity can seem like a chimera. We are bombarded with messages that link our worth and our joy to the accumulation of possessions, to social recognition, to the approval of others, or to the perfection of the circumstances around us. However, these pursuits often leave us exhausted, frustrated, and paradoxically more anxious. Happiness that depends on external factors is, by its very nature, fragile and ephemeral, like a leaf in the wind. But what if the key to a full, resilient, and serene life resided not in changing the world around us, but in transforming our relationship with it? And what if the deepest freedom were found not in the absence of problems, but in the unshakable strength of our mind when facing them? This is the bold and liberating premise of Stoicism, a philosophy that flourished more than 2,000 years ago in ancient Greece and Rome, and which today, in the 21st century, resonates with astonishing relevance and urgency. At the heart of this practical philosophy lies the wisdom of Epictetus, a man whose own life was a living testament to his teachings. Born a slave in Hierapolis, Phrygia, modern-day Turkey, around 50 AD, Epictetus experienced oppression and hardship from his earliest days. His name, Epictetus, literally means acquired or possessed, a stark reminder of his condition. However, despite physical chains and a lack of external freedom, Epictetus found true freedom and greatness not in physical rebellion, but in the impregnable strength of his mind. He was freed from slavery in Rome, where he became a renowned teacher of Stoic philosophy, attracting students from all social classes, including future emperors like Marcus Aurelius. Later, he was banished from Rome along with other philosophers by Emperor Domitian, but continued teaching until his death around 135 AD. Epictetus did not write any books. He believed that philosophy should be lived and taught through dialogue and practice. Fortunately for us, one of his most devoted disciples, a historian named Arrian, meticulously transcribed his lessons. From these transcriptions emerged two fundamental works: the Discourses, also known as diatribes, a more extensive collection of his teachings, and the Enchiridion, manual, a concise and powerful distillation of essential Stoic principles for daily life. It is this enchiridion, often popularly referred to as the art of living, that will serve as our guide and the backbone of this audiobook. The Art of Living by Epictetus is much more than an ancient philosophical text. It is an operating manual for the human mind. It is a practical guide that doesn't offer magical solutions, but solid tools to build an impregnable inner fortress. Its principles, forged in the crucible of adversity, teach us to navigate the complexities of existence with wisdom, resilience, and a tranquility that cannot be disturbed by external circumstances. In an era where stress, anxiety, and the search for external validation are epidemic, the wisdom of Epictetus emerges as a potent and eternally relevant antidote. Throughout this audiobook, we will delve into the central principles that Epictetus considered essential for living a virtuous and full life. You will learn to discern the dichotomy of control. This is the cornerstone of all Stoic philosophy and the starting point for tranquility. You'll learn to precisely differentiate what is truly within your power, your judgments, your opinions, your desires, your aversions, your internal actions, from what is not, your body, your possessions, your reputation, the weather, the actions of other people, the past, the future. By mastering this distinction, you'll release an immense amount of energy you previously wasted worrying about the uncontrollable. Understand the power of our judgments. You'll discover that it's not external events that disturb you, but your interpretations and judgments about them. Epictetus taught us that emotional pain doesn't reside in objective reality, but in the story we tell ourselves about it. You'll learn to examine your impressions and question the validity of your automatic opinions to dismantle the root of anguish. Embrace the acceptance of the inevitable, amor fati. This is the art of accepting with serenity what you cannot change. It's not a passive or resigned acceptance, but an active and wise acceptance that allows you to adapt to circumstances and find peace even amidst adversity. You'll learn to love your destiny, not to fight against it. Cultivate virtue as the only good. For Epictetus, true happiness and the supreme good are not found in wealth, fame, or pleasure, but in living according to virtue, practical wisdom, courage, justice, and temperance. You'll understand how moral excellence and integrity of character are the only true possessions no one can take from you. Master the discipline of desire and aversion. Our unexamined desires and automatic aversions are chains that bind us to suffering. You'll learn to moderate your desires to want only what is within your power and to avoid aversion to what you cannot control, thus releasing immense inner freedom. Apply philosophy in your relationships and in society. Stoicism is not a philosophy for hermits. You'll see how to apply its principles in your interactions with others, dealing with their imperfections, fulfilling your social roles with excellence, and cultivating benevolence towards the human community. Prepare for challenges with resilience. We'll explore Stoic practices such as premeditation of evils, anticipating and visualizing challenges to reduce their emotional impact, and negative visualization, imagining the loss of what we value to appreciate it more deeply. These are tools for building an unshakable mind. Live with awareness and purpose. Finally, you'll understand that Stoicism is a way of life, a philosophy in action. You'll learn the importance of daily self-examination, constant reflection, and living fully in the present, applying reason and virtue in every moment. Chapter 1. The Dichotomy of Control, the Foundation of Wisdom. At the heart of Stoicism, and the first essential teaching Epictetus offered his students, resides a principle as simple in its formulation as it is revolutionary in its application: the dichotomy of control. This is not an abstract idea, but a fundamental discernment tool that, once mastered, becomes the unshakable foundation of your serenity and inner freedom. Epictetus insisted that the key to a tranquil and virtuous life lies not in changing external circumstances, but in understanding where our power truly resides. The philosopher made it clear in the first lines of his manual: some things are in our power, others are not. This distinction, seemingly obvious, is the foundation of all Stoic strength. Those things that are in our power are, fundamentally, our opinions, our impulses, our desires, our aversions, and in a word, our own actions. They are the internal movements of our mind and our will. On the other hand, what is not in our power includes our body, our possessions, our reputation, social status, health, illnesses, weather, natural disasters, and, crucially, the actions and opinions of other people. They are external events, the circumstances around us that we cannot dictate. Most human anguish, Epictetus observed, stems from our inability to distinguish these two categories. We expend an immense amount of psychic energy, time, and effort trying to control the uncontrollable, wishing that reality would conform to our expectations. We get frustrated when people don't behave as we want. We get enraged by rain on a sunny day, or we become depressed by the loss of a possession. All this suffering is, from the Stoic perspective, self-imposed. It is the result of trying to exert control where we have none, or of basing our happiness on things that can be taken away at any moment. Think about your daily life. How many times do you worry about traffic, the weather, deadlines set by others, or your boss's opinion? These are all external things. You cannot control whether it rains or whether your colleague acts a certain way or whether the economy goes up or down. But you can control your reaction to those situations. You can control your opinion about traffic. It's frustrating, or it's an opportunity to listen to this audiobook. Your judgment about your colleague's behavior. It's a personal affront, or it's their way of dealing with stress. And your desire for things to be different than they are. Here lies your true power, in the realm of your mind. Epictetus did not suggest that we become passive or indifferent to the world. He did not say that we should not strive to improve things. On the contrary, he invited us to concentrate all our energy and our will on the only domain where we can truly be effective, that of our own rational and volitional faculties. When you focus on improving your opinions so that they are more rational and less reactive, on disciplining your impulses so that they don't drag you into imprudent actions, on moderating your desires to want only what is achievable or virtuous, and on controlling your aversions so as not to fear what is inevitable, then and only then do you become truly free. Imagine an archer. Their goal is to hit the center of the target. The archer can control many things: their technique, their breathing, the tension of the bow, the direction of their gaze, but they cannot control an unexpected gust of wind or a bird crossing their path. If the archer bases their happiness solely on hitting the center, they will be frustrated by uncontrollable variables. But if they base their happiness on having executed their technique perfectly, on having done everything in their power, then their tranquility will not depend on the external result. This is Stoicism in action. The result, hitting or not, is indifferent in the sense that it does not define their worth or their tranquility. What defines their worth is the virtue of their effort. The dichotomy of control is also a powerful tool for managing frustration and anger. Anger, according to Epictetus, arises when something we intensely desire does not happen, or when something we abhor does happen, and we believe we can control it. When you realize that another person's action or an external event is simply not within your control, frustration dissolves. You cannot control whether someone insults you, but you can control your reaction to that insult. You can choose to be offended, or you can choose to ignore it, considering it a mere sound in the air. The offense is not in the insult itself, but in your judgment that it is an insult and that it should disturb you. This requires constant practice and mental vigilance. Our minds are conditioned to react automatically to external events, to wish that things were different. The Stoic's task is to interrupt this cycle, to pause and apply the dichotomy of control. Is this in my power? If not, then I must accept it. If so, then I must act with virtue. Everyday examples of applying the dichotomy of control. At work. You cannot control management decisions, the competitiveness of your colleagues, or market volatility. But you can control the quality of your work, your professional ethics, your attitude towards challenges, and your response to criticism. Focus your energy there. In relationships. You cannot control whether someone loves you, respects you, or is loyal to you. You cannot control their decisions or their moods, but you can control how you love, how you respect, how you communicate, and how you act with integrity in that relationship. Your peace will not depend on the other person's response, but on the quality of your own action. In health, you cannot control aging, the onset of certain diseases or accidents, but you can control your eating habits, your exercise level, your stress management, and your attitude towards adversity. In the pursuit of happiness, if you base your happiness on having the perfect car, the ideal house, or universal recognition, you are chaining yourself to things that are not within your control and that, even if you achieve them, can be transient. If you base your happiness on virtue, on the development of your character, on wisdom and self-discipline, then your happiness is impregnable, for it resides within you. The dichotomy of control is also a shield against fear. We fear losing possessions, status, health, or loved ones. But by understanding that these things are external and that their existence does not define our worth or our ability to be virtuous, fear loses its power. It does not mean that we do not value these things or that we do not feel pain at their loss. It means that our fundamental well-being does not depend on them. Epictetus urged us to love these things as if they were lent to us, knowing that the lender can ask for them back at any time. The practice of the dichotomy of control is not something that is mastered once and for all. It is a daily discipline. Every situation, every interaction, every disturbing emotion is an opportunity to pause and apply this filter. Ask yourself, is this up to me? Is it within my control? If not, why am I worried or disturbed by it? If so, what virtuous action can I take here and now? By practicing this, your mind is trained to focus on what matters, your energy is directed effectively, and your inner peace is strengthened with each repetition. Stoicism does not promise a life without problems or pain, but it promises a life without unnecessary disturbances, a life where your tranquility resides within yourself, unaffected by external storms. This first principle of the dichotomy of control is the compass that will guide you on that path. Chapter 2. Our Judgments, the Source of Disturbance. Epictetus guides us one step further, toward an even more liberating truth, one that disarms the very root of much of our anguish and suffering. He emphatically stated, "It is not events that disturb us, but our judgments about them." This seemingly simple statement contains immense wisdom that has the power to radically transform our experience of life. Let's think of a common event: rain. For a farmer who has been suffering a drought, rain is a blessing. For a couple planning an outdoor wedding, it can be an annoyance or even a tragedy. For a child who loves jumping in puddles, it's an opportunity for fun. The event is the same, drops of water falling from the sky. But our emotional reactions are radically different. Why? Not because of the rain itself, but because of the judgment or interpretation each person attributes to it. The suffering is not in the rain, but in the mind that labels it as bad or unfortunate in a particular context. Epictetus insisted that external events are by nature neutral. They lack intrinsic good or bad value. They are simply facts. It is our mind, through its automatic judgments, ingrained beliefs and expectations, that assigns them a positive or negative meaning, and it is that meaning that generates our emotional response. If we judge an event as terrible, we will feel fear or sadness. If we judge it as unjust, we will feel anger. If we judge it as wonderful, we will feel joy. The emotion is not an inevitable consequence of the event, but a direct consequence of our judgment about the event. Imagine someone criticizes you. The criticism is the event. You cannot control whether someone decides to criticize you, but you can control your judgment about that criticism. You can judge it as a personal attack and feel hurt or angry, or you can judge it as an opinion that does not define me, or an opportunity to learn, or even an indication that that person is suffering, and thus maintain your inner peace. The disturbance does not reside in the critic's mouth, but in your own mind. This principle is deeply empowering because it puts control back in your hands. If the source of your suffering is not external events, which are beyond your power, but your own judgments, which are within your power, then you have the inherent ability to free yourself from much of your anguish. You are no longer a passive victim of circumstances. You become the architect of your own emotional experience. How can we apply this principle in daily life? It requires constant practice of self-observation and questioning our automatic impressions. Pause and question. When you feel an intense negative emotion, anger, frustration, anxiety, sadness,
Stop for a moment. Do not react immediately. Ask yourself, what external event has occurred? And then, what judgment am I making about this event that is causing me this emotion? For example, if you feel frustrated in a traffic jam, the event is many cars on the road. The judgment might be, this is a horrible and unacceptable waste of time. By identifying the judgment, you can begin to work on it. Identify the unmet expectation. Many times, negative judgment arises from an unmet expectation. You expected traffic to flow, for the person to act a certain way, for the project to be perfect. Epictetus taught us to moderate our expectations about external things. If you expect things to be as they are, you won't be surprised or frustrated when they don't meet your desires. Reframe the judgment. Once you identify the judgment that disturbs you, you can try to reframe it. Instead of, this is terrible, you can say, this is what is happening now. What can I do about it? Or, if it's uncontrollable, this is part of life. I choose to accept it with equanimity. Reframing is not denying reality, but changing your perspective on it so that it serves you better. For example, in a traffic jam, you can reframe it as an opportunity to listen to an audiobook or a moment to practice patience. Remember the dichotomy of control. Always return to the fundamental question, is this in my power? If it is not, then your judgment that it should be is the root of your suffering. Release that judgment. If it is, then your judgment should be, what virtuous action can I take here and now? This principle is a constant exercise in mental discipline. Our minds are conditioned by years of reactive thought habits, but every time you pause, identify a judgment that disturbs you, and consciously choose a different perspective, you are strengthening your capacity for self-mastery and serenity. Epictetus didn't just theorize, he lived it. He, a slave who couldn't control his status or his body, it is said he suffered a limp from mistreatment, found freedom in his mind. He could have judged his situation as the worst of misfortunes, but he chose to judge it as an opportunity to apply and teach Stoic philosophy. His peace did not depend on physical freedom, but on the freedom of his judgment. This is a path to profound freedom. We cannot control what happens to us, but we are the sole owners of how we choose to interpret it. By mastering the art of examining and disciplining our judgments, we become the architects of our inner peace, impregnable against the storms of the external world. Chapter 3. The Acceptance of the Inevitable. Amor Fati. Embracing what life offers. Now we delve into the third fundamental pillar of Epictetus's Stoicism, the acceptance of the inevitable,
a practice often summarized in the powerful Latin phrase amor fati, which means love of fate. This is not an invitation to passivity or apathetic resignation. It's not about shrugging your shoulders and saying, that's life, with an air of defeat. On the contrary, Stoic acceptance is an act of active wisdom and an immense source of inner power. It is to understand that, once we have done everything in our power regarding a situation, we must embrace the outcome that presents itself, whatever it may be, as an integral part of the natural order of the cosmos. It is not only to endure what happens to you, but to love it. Epictetus taught that nature, the universe or destiny, has a plan that often escapes our individual understanding. Resisting what has already happened or what is inevitable is like trying to make the river flow uphill, a futile and exhausting battle. This resistance, this desire for reality to be different from what it is an inexhaustible source of suffering. Acceptance, on the other hand, frees the immense amount of energy that is wasted in that useless resistance and redirects it towards constructive action in the realm of what we do control. Imagine you lose your job. This is an external event, beyond your control once it has happened. Your initial reaction might be anger, frustration, or despair. But if you apply the principle of acceptance, you recognize, this has happened. I cannot change the fact that I lost my job. My resistance to this fact will only cause me more pain. Once you accept the reality of the event, you can then redirect your energy toward what is within your power, seeking a new job, learning new skills, reflecting on what you can improve, or even seeing this as an opportunity for a new path you had never considered. Acceptance does not deny the initial pain, but it prevents that pain from becoming prolonged suffering.
Think of the metaphor of the swimmer. If a swimmer tries to fight against the river current, they quickly get exhausted and barely move forward. But if they adapt to the current, if they flow with it and use its energy to propel themselves in the desired direction, they can cover great distances with less effort. Life is that current. Trying to make it conform to your desires when it goes against its flow is useless. Accepting it and flowing with it gives you power. The acceptance of the inevitable applies to all aspects of life: losses, the loss of loved ones, possessions, opportunities. Although pain is natural, prolonged suffering often comes from denial or the desire for the past to be different. Accepting the reality of loss allows you to honor the past and eventually move forward. Illness and old age. They are inevitable aspects of the human condition. We can fight to stay healthy, but we cannot stop the passage of time or the onset of certain diseases. Accepting these facts is not giving up, but living fully within the circumstances given to us, finding dignity and purpose even in adversity. The actions of others. We cannot control how others act. Someone may lie to us, betray us, defraud us. Feeling anger or resentment about this is understandable, but Epictetus would tell us that it is a way of chaining our peace to the actions of another. Accepting that people act according to their own judgments and perceptions which are not in our power frees us from resentment. We can choose how we respond to their actions, but we cannot control their actions themselves. Global events, economic crises, natural disasters, political events. We cannot control these large-scale phenomena. Excessive worry about them only drains us. Acceptance allows us to focus on our sphere of influence, how we prepare, how we help our community, how we maintain our own virtue. The practice of acceptance is not a mental trick to ignore pain. Stoicism recognizes that feeling pain, sadness, or fear in the face of adversity is a natural and human reaction. Stoic acceptance is a second step. It is choosing not to add suffering to that pain through resistance or denial. It means saying, "This is what it is. It's not what I wanted, but it's what I have to work with. How can I respond to this in the wisest and most virtuous way possible?" Epictetus encouraged his students to want things to happen as they do. This is not a servile resignation, but a deep alignment with the flow of life. It is to understand that the universe is rational and that everything that happens is part of a larger order. By aligning your will with the will of the universe, you become impregnable. You do not desire a different reality, but you accept the one presented to you, and in that acceptance, you find an unshakable peace. The beauty of acceptance lies in the fact that, by releasing the struggle against the uncontrollable, you free yourself to act with all your energy and creativity in the realm of what you can control, your judgments, your virtues, and your actions. Acceptance is not the end of action, but the beginning of virtuous and effective action. Chapter 4. Virtue as the only good, living with reason and character. In a world that constantly bombards us with messages associating happiness and success with the accumulation of material wealth, the relentless pursuit of fame and social recognition, instant gratification through hedonistic pleasure, or the possession of perfect health and unattainable beauty, the Stoics' declaration is radically countercultural and, at first, can seem profoundly counterintuitive. Epictetus insisted that these external goods, money, reputation, pleasure, health, beauty, possessions, are not really goods in themselves. He called them indifferents. This doesn't mean they lack practical value or that we don't value them at all. It's not that we should despise health or prosperity. It means that their possession or absence are indifferent to our capacity for virtue and, therefore, do not determine our true happiness or the goodness of our soul.
Wealth can be used for good or for ill. A healthy person can be a tyrant, and a sick person can be a saint. Neither wealth nor health by themselves guarantee goodness of character, peace of mind, or tranquility of spirit. They are tools or circumstances, but they are not the ultimate end. As Epictetus rightly said, virtue is the only thing worthy of praise, vice is the only thing worthy of censure. Virtue, for the Stoics, is based on living in accordance with reason and nature. It implies excellence of character, the correct application of our rational faculty, and the alignment of our individual will with the logical and harmonious order of the universe, the nature or logos. It is the development and constant practice of those internal qualities that make us the best human beings we can be. The Stoics identified 4 cardinal virtues that, when cultivated and diligently practiced, constitute the straight and sure path to a full, meaningful, and resilient life. Wisdom, or prudence. This is not simply the accumulation of knowledge or data. It is the practical application of that knowledge in life situations. It is the ability to discern with clarity what is truly good, virtue, what is bad, vice, and what is indifferent, everything else. It is the skill to make rational, effective, and ethical decisions, applying Stoic principles to daily challenges. Wisdom is the knowledge of how to live correctly, how to navigate life intelligently, and how to choose the best action at each crossroads, always recognizing the limits of our control. Practical example. When you face a complex problem at work or in a relationship, Stoic wisdom doesn't prompt you to react impulsively, but to pause, analyze the situation objectively, distinguish what you can control, your attitude, your effort, your communication, from what you cannot, the other's reaction, the final outcome, and then choose the most virtuous and sensible action possible, instead of being carried away by emotions. Justice. This virtue involves acting with fairness, impartiality, and profound benevolence toward all human beings. It is recognizing that we are part of an interconnected human community, a universal city, and that our actions must contribute to the common good and the well-being of others, not just our own. Justice is treating others as we would like to be treated, with respect, dignity, and compassion, even when their actions are not what we would wish. It is defending fairness and truth and seeking social harmony. Practical example. If you witness an injustice, Stoic justice would impel you to act, if it's within your power and sensible, or to raise your voice, not out of anger or resentment, but out of the principle that it is the right thing to do. In your daily interactions, it means giving everyone their due, being honest in your dealings, and acting with integrity without favoritism or prejudice. Courage, or fortitude. This is not the absence of fear, but the ability to act correctly, with uprightness and morality, despite fear, adversity, physical or emotional pain, uncertainty, or danger. It is the bravery to defend what is just, to face difficulties with firmness of spirit, to endure inevitable suffering with dignity, and to resist the temptations of cowardice, imprudence, or despair. It is the mental and spiritual strength to bear what is inevitable and to act with integrity in the face of dangers. Practical example. When you face a serious illness or a personal loss, Stoic courage allows you to accept the reality of the situation, the uncontrollable, feel the pain, but choose how you respond to it. It is deciding to continue living with purpose, seeking solutions within your limits, and maintaining dignity instead of succumbing to self-pity or despair. It is also the courage to tell the truth when it is unpopular. Temperance, or moderation/self-control. This is discipline over our desires, impulses, appetites, and pleasures. It implies moderation in all things, avoiding excesses that lead us to suffering, to the slavery of passions, or to losing control of ourselves. It is the ability to master our passions and to live with good sense, balance, and self-restraint. Temperance allows us not to be slaves to our impulses, but masters of our own will. Practical example. Faced with a temptation,
overeating, impulsive spending, excessive time on social media. Stoic temperance allows you to pause. You don't deny the desire, but you examine it. Is this aligned with my reason and my long-term well-being? Then you exercise self-control and choose the action that benefits you, instead of succumbing to the momentary impulse. For Epictetus, true and lasting happiness is not found in the possession of external things, which can always be lost, deteriorate, or fail to meet expectations, but in the cultivation and constant practice of these internal virtues, which no one can take from you, which are inherently yours and which grow with use. When you base your worth, your serenity, and your purpose on your character, on the integrity of your actions, and on the purity of your intentions, you become impregnable. The external world can do what it wants, circumstances may change, but your inner strength, your inner citadel, remains intact and unaffected by the storms. Living with virtue means always acting according to reason and choosing what is morally correct, even when it is difficult, unpopular, or seems to go against your own immediate benefit. It is choosing integrity over convenience, honesty over falsehood, justice over unfair personal gain, compassion over resentment. This constant and conscious practice not only strengthens your character, it aligns you with the very nature of the universe and with what it means to be a human being in its highest expression. True wealth, according to Epictetus, is not how many material possessions you have accumulated, but how good, how disciplined, how rational, and how upright your soul is. A virtuous person who lives in poverty is, from the Stoic perspective, richer than a vicious king, because the virtuous person possesses the only thing that truly matters and the only thing that cannot be taken away: their unshakable character. By focusing your life on virtue as your only supreme good, your priorities fundamentally readjust. You stop feverishly pursuing what doesn't matter or what is beyond your control, and you concentrate all your energy on what truly builds your being and brings you lasting peace. You free yourself from paralyzing anxiety about external losses and from corrosive envy over others' possessions. Your happiness becomes self-sufficient, anchored in the unshakable strength of your own virtue and your will. This is true freedom. Chapter 5, The Discipline of Desire and Aversion, the Art of Wanting Correctly. This is the art of wanting correctly, a crucial skill for freeing ourselves from the self-imposed chains of suffering. For Epictetus, much of our unhappiness and frustration stems from our unexamined desires and aversions. We ardently desire things that are beyond our control: wealth, recognition, the approval of others, perfect health, and we vehemently oppose things that are inevitable: illness, loss, criticism, death. When our desires for the uncontrollable are not met, we suffer. When what we oppose and what is uncontrollable occurs, we also suffer. This is a double-edged trap that keeps us constantly in a state of agitation. If you desire something that is not in your power, Epictetus said, you cannot avoid being disturbed if you do not obtain it. And similarly, if you feel aversion for something that is beyond your control, you cannot avoid being afflicted when it happens to you. The logic is implacable. By placing our happiness and peace in the hands of the external, we become slaves to circumstances. Our emotions become a swinging pendulum moved by winds we cannot control. Epictetus's solution is not the total suppression of desires, which is unnatural and impossible for a human being. Rather, it is the discipline and reorientation of our desires. He teaches us to desire only what is achievable and, crucially, what is in our power. And the only thing that is fully in our power is our own virtue, our opinions, our impulses, our internal actions. If we only desire to live with wisdom, justice, courage, and temperance, then our desires are always within reach, for they depend entirely on our will. Think of the difference between desiring and preferring. Epictetus encouraged us to have preferences for external things, but not unconditional desires. We can prefer to have health, prefer to have wealth, prefer to be appreciated. But if these preferences become absolute desires on which our happiness depends, then we are opening ourselves to suffering when they are not met. A desire for the external is a contract with frustration. A preference, on the other hand, is an inclination that we accept if it occurs, but without being disturbed if it does not materialize. That is, I prefer to be healthy, but if I get sick, I will adapt and apply my virtue. The same discipline applies to our aversions. We viscerally oppose loss, pain, old age, death, but all these are inevitable parts of life. Aversion to what is uncontrollable condemns us to perpetual anguish. The discipline of aversion, therefore, consists of directing our aversion only toward what is within our power: vice, irrationality, injustice, cowardice. Only these are the things that should be truly abhorrent to a Stoic, because they are the only ones that can corrupt our soul. If your aversion is directed at not being unjust, not being cowardly, not being irrational, then you can always avoid what truly displeases you. The freedom found in aligning our desires and aversions with nature is immense. Living in accordance with nature, for Epictetus, means living in accordance with reason, our distinctive faculty as human beings. It means accepting the order of the cosmos, the laws of cause and effect, and the impermanence of all external things. When our desires and aversions are in harmony with this reality, we become imperturbable. It's not that we don't feel passions or impulses, it's that we don't allow them to dominate us or dictate our peace. Practical exercises to discipline desire and aversion. Examination of desires. When you find yourself intensely desiring something, pause and ask yourself, is this in my power? If not, am I turning a preference into an absolute desire that will cause me suffering if it is not met? If the answer is yes, recalibrate your desire to a simple preference. Examination of aversions. Similarly, when you feel a strong aversion or fear towards something, ask yourself, is this within my power to avoid? Is it vice or irrationality that I abhor, or is it an inevitable external circumstance? Direct your aversion only towards vice. The premeditation of evils. Premeditatio malorum. This is a key Stoic technique. Before a potentially negative event occurs, visualize it. Imagine losing your job, getting sick, or being criticized. By doing this in a calm state, you mentally prepare yourself and realize that even in those circumstances, you can maintain your virtue and your reason. This reduces the emotional impact when and if the event occurs and helps you detach from desires for external things. Moderation and gradual asceticism. Practice moderation in pleasures and voluntary exposure to small discomforts. This is not for suffering, but to strengthen your will and your ability not to depend on pleasure or comfort. Sometimes eat less than you want, sometimes take the longer path, sometimes resist an impulse. This trains your desires. The freedom found in mastering our desires and aversions is true Stoic freedom. It is the ability not to be disturbed by fortune or adversity, not to be swept away by uncontrollable passions. It is the art of wanting what is good and avoiding what is bad, in the only domain where we truly have power, that of our own mind. By disciplining our desires and aversions, we become masters of ourselves, and only then can we live with an unshakable serenity. Chapter 6. The Role of Relationships and Society, the Stoic in the World. These principles, though profound, may at first glance seem very introspective, focused on the individual and their mind. However, Epictetus, a slave who lived and taught in the heart of the Roman Empire, deeply understood that human beings are inherently social. We are not islands. Our lives unfold within the complex fabric of relationships and society. This chapter will guide us on how to apply Stoic wisdom to our interactions with others, how to fulfill our roles with excellence, and how to maintain our serenity in the often chaotic arena of the world.
For Epictetus, living in accordance with nature not only meant living in accordance with reason, but also living in accordance with our social nature. We are rational and social animals. Therefore, our virtue manifests not only in how we think and judge, but also in how we act and interact with our fellow human beings. Stoic philosophy is not an invitation to reclusion or indifference toward humanity. It is a guide to being an effective, just, and serene member of the community. The first step to applying Stoicism in relationships is to understand the dichotomy of control in the interpersonal context. We cannot control the actions, thoughts, emotions, or decisions of other people. This is one of the greatest liberators of anguish in relationships. How many times are we disturbed because our partner does not act as we expect, because our children do not obey us, because a friend disappoints us, or because a colleague does not collaborate? All that disturbance arises from trying to control the uncontrollable. Epictetus would say, if someone insults you, remember that the one who insults you is your own opinion, that you are being insulted. The offense is not in the insult, but in your judgment about it. What we can control in relationships is our own attitude, our words, our actions, our intentions, and our response to the actions of others. We can choose to be kind, just, patient, honest, and benevolent, regardless of how others behave. Here lies our power and our freedom. The fulfillment of our roles, our parts in life. Epictetus emphasized the importance of fulfilling our roles in life with excellence and virtue. He saw life as a play. We do not choose the role assigned to us, son, father, husband, citizen, leader, employee, but we can choose how we play it. And we must play it in the best possible way, with virtue. As a son, daughter, you must love your parents, respect them, and be loyal to them, regardless of their imperfections. Your virtue does not depend on them being perfect, but on how you fulfill your role as a son. As a father, mother, your role is to love, nurture, educate, and guide your children as best as possible. You cannot control whether they obey you or whether they become the people you want, but you can control the quality of your parenthood. As a spouse, partner, you must be faithful, loyal, communicative, and supportive. You cannot control whether your partner is faithful to you or always satisfies you, but you can control your integrity and your commitment. As a citizen, your role is to obey laws, participate in your community, and contribute to the common good. As an employee leader, your role is to fulfill your responsibilities diligently, honestly, and excellently, and to treat your colleagues with justice and respect. The goal is not for others to fulfill their roles perfectly for you to be happy, but for you to fulfill your role with virtue to maintain your own peace. If you do your part with excellence and others do not do theirs, the fault is theirs, not yours, and your virtue is not compromised. Dealing with the imperfections of others. A great challenge in relationships is dealing with the imperfections, mistakes, or shortcomings of others. Epictetus offered us a perspective that fosters patience and understanding. He reminded us that people act as they do because their judgments are as they are. If someone makes a mistake, lies, or hurts you, they do so because, from their probably erroneous perspective, that is the correct or necessary action at that moment. Their action comes from their ignorance or their own disturbance. Be compassionate. Instead of reacting with anger, try to understand that another's mistake often comes from ignorance or a misinterpretation of reality. Who willingly harms themselves or others knowing they are doing so? Very few. Focus on your response. You cannot control the behavior of others, but you can control how you respond. Do you respond with anger, judgment, or resentment? Or do you respond with calm, reason, and the intention to maintain your own virtue, even if you must set clear boundaries or withdraw from the situation? Do not expect perfection. If you expect others to be perfect, you are guaranteeing yourself frustration. Accept that, like you, all human beings are fallible and are on their own learning journey. the human community and benevolence, cosmopolitanism. Beyond individual relationships, Stoicism invites us to see ourselves as citizens of a universal city, the cosmos. This idea of cosmopolitanism reminds us that all human beings are brothers and sisters, part of the same family. This perspective fosters universal benevolence, a genuine desire to contribute to the common good and to act justly toward all, regardless of their origin, status, or personal relationship with us. Act with justice. In all your interactions, seek fairness. Do not just seek your own benefit, but mutual benefit and the well-being of the community. Offer service. Contribute to your society with your talents and your effort, knowing that by helping others, you help yourself and contribute to the harmony of the whole. Be tolerant. Recognize that diversity of opinions and behaviors is natural. What you can control is your own response, not the existence of diversity. Maintaining equanimity in social settings. The social world is often a breeding ground for disturbance. Social expectations, the search for approval, the fear of rejection, comparison with others, all of this can undermine our peace. Do not be disturbed by the opinions of others. The opinion of others is an external thing, beyond your control. If you base your worth on what others think of you, you become their slave. Live according to your own reason and virtue, and external approval becomes a preferable indifferent, not a necessity. Be aware of the search for approval. Observe your tendency to want to please others. The Stoic seeks to be virtuous for their own internal reason, not to gain applause. Manage conflict with reason. When disagreement or conflict arises, do not let yourself be carried away by emotions. Return to the dichotomy of control and virtue. What is the right thing you can do or say in this situation? How can you maintain your peace while seeking a just solution? Practice indifference toward fame or unjust criticism. If you do the right thing and are still criticized or slandered, remember that it is beyond your control. Your character remains intact. Epictetus said that if someone insults you, the insult is not in their words, but in your interpretation of them. The Stoic in the world is a person of deep calm, unshakable in character, just in action, and benevolent in spirit, regardless of the social storms around them. The constant practice of Stoic principles in your relationships makes you a pillar of strength and wisdom for yourself and for those with whom you interact. Inner freedom is the greatest gift you can give yourself, and it manifests fully in how you choose to live and relate in your human community. Chapter 7. Preparing for Challenges. Stoic Practices for Resilience. Philosophy is not just a system of thought, it's a constant training for the mind, a medicine for the soul. Life is inherently unpredictable. Despite our best plans and desires, setbacks, losses, illnesses, injustices, and disappointments are an inescapable part of human existence. For the Stoic, the key is not to avoid these difficulties, which is impossible, but to be mentally prepared for them, so that when they arrive, they don't catch us by surprise and don't disturb our tranquility. This preparation is the essence of resilience. One of the most powerful and distinctive practices of Stoicism is the premeditation of evils, in Latin, praemeditatio malorum. This technique is not about being pessimistic or inviting bad luck. On the contrary, it is a deliberate mental exercise to anticipate and visualize the challenges, losses, and difficulties that might occur in the future. Epictetus invited us to meditate on the possibility of losing a loved one, becoming seriously ill, suffering a financial loss, or facing criticism and betrayal. The purpose of the premeditation of evils is twofold. Reduce emotional impact. By considering these possibilities beforehand, when and if they occur, they are no longer as shocking or destabilizing. We have mentally rehearsed adversity, and this allows us to face it with greater calm and equanimity. The blow is less harsh because we have already contemplated it. It's like a soldier training for battle. They don't wish for war, but by preparing, they reduce panic when confrontation is inevitable. Strengthen gratitude and appreciation. The paradox of this practice is that by imagining the loss of what we value, we develop a deeper appreciation for what we have in the present. We remind ourselves that every day with health, with our loved ones, with our possessions, is a gift, not a right. This fosters gratitude and helps us live more fully in the here and now without taking anything for granted. How to practice the premeditation of evils. Visualize the worst, calmly. Choose an area of your life that concerns you: health, finances, relationships. In a state of calm, sit down and visualize the worst possible scenario. If you fear losing your job, imagine receiving the news, packing your things, the days that follow. Don't wallow in fear, but observe it objectively. Evaluate your virtuous response. Once the scenario is visualized, ask yourself, if this were to happen, how could I respond with virtue? How would I apply wisdom, justice, courage, and temperance in this situation? How would I maintain my reason and inner peace? This empowers you as you realize that no matter what happens externally, your character and your capacity for choice remain intact. Remember the nature of things. By meditating on these possibilities, you remind yourself of the impermanence of all external things. Life is constant change, and clinging to things remaining as they are is a source of suffering. Another fundamental Stoic practice for resilience is the exercise of negative visualization. This is similar to premeditation, but it focuses specifically on appreciating what we have. Imagine that you have already lost something you deeply value: your health, your home, your ability to walk, the presence of a loved one. What would your life be like without it? By doing this, not to generate sadness but to awaken gratitude, you realize the immense wealth you already possess. This exercise counteracts the human tendency to take what we have for granted and to focus only on what we lack. Negative visualization makes you a master of gratitude, transforming your perspective on your current reality. Self-discipline is another vital tool for Stoic resilience. It is the ability to control your impulses, your passions, and your desires.
Epictetus insisted that we are slaves to our passions if we do not master them. Self-discipline is not a denial of life or of pleasures, but a mastery over oneself. When we are disciplined in our habits, sleeping, eating, exercising, studying, we build a solid foundation for our physical and mental resilience. When we are disciplined in our emotions, we are not swept away by outbursts of anger or by despair. Self-discipline gives you the power to choose your response instead of reacting automatically. Epictetus often used the analogy of philosophy as a medicine for the soul. Just as a doctor prescribes a diet or exercise for the body, the philosopher prescribes principles and practices to heal and strengthen the mind. Resilience is not an innate quality that some have and others do not. It is a skill that is trained and strengthened with the constant use of these philosophical medicines. Every time you apply the dichotomy of control, every time you question a disturbing judgment, every time you practice acceptance, you are training your mind to be stronger, calmer, and more resistant to external disturbances. Finally, Stoic resilience is nurtured by the acceptance of death. For the Stoics, death is not something to fear, but a natural and inevitable part of the cycle of life. Meditating on our own mortality is not morbid. It is a powerful reminder of the preciousness of the time we have and the importance of living each day with virtue. By accepting that life is finite, we free ourselves from the fear of losing it and can concentrate on living it fully, with purpose and without regrets. Awareness of death helps us value the present and not postpone virtuous living for an uncertain future. In summary, preparation for challenges in Stoicism is a rigorous and continuous mental training. Through the premeditation of evils, negative visualization, self-discipline, and the acceptance of impermanence, you equip yourself with an inner strength that allows you to face any storm that life presents you. You cannot control the winds, but you can adjust your sails, and in that mastery over yourself lies your true and unshakable resilience. Chapter 8. Living with awareness and purpose, the daily practice of Stoicism. We have explored the fundamental Stoic principles that teach us to discern our control, to manage our judgments, to accept the inevitable, to cultivate virtue, to discipline our desires and aversions, and to prepare for challenges. Now, we arrive at the essence of Stoic philosophy, not as a mere set of theoretical ideas, but as an active and conscious way of life.
This chapter will guide you on how to integrate these principles into your daily practice, transforming each day into an opportunity to live with greater awareness, purpose, and serenity. Epictetus did not teach from a pulpit, but through example and constant practice. For him and the other Stoics, philosophy was not something to be studied, but something to be lived. It was a medicine for the soul, a daily discipline that strengthened the mind and character. Theory without practice is empty. Practice without theory is blind. True wisdom lies in the consistent application of what we learn. One of the most crucial practices for the Stoic is daily self-examination. This is not self-flagellation or an exercise in guilt, but an honest and objective review of your actions and thoughts at the end of the day. Epictetus advised asking 3 key questions each night. What did I do wrong today? Reflect on moments when you got carried away by emotions, when your judgments were irrational, when you acted selfishly or impatiently. Identify the mistake without condemning yourself. Simply acknowledge it. What did I do well today? Acknowledge the moments when you applied Stoic principles. Did you remain calm in the face of provocation? Did you act with justice? Did you accept something you couldn't control? Celebrate these small triumphs. What could I have done better? Identify areas for improvement. How could you have responded more virtuously in a difficult situation? What principle could you have applied with greater diligence? This daily self-examination is a driver of continuous improvement. It allows you to learn from your mistakes, reinforce your virtues, and stay alert to your tendencies towards disturbance. It is a constant dialogue with yourself, a way to adjust the rudder of your mental ship each day. The value of silence and reflection is another pillar of daily Stoic practice. In a noisy world full of distractions, finding moments of stillness is essential for connecting with your inner reason. Moments of solitude. Epictetus recommended spending time alone, not to isolate yourself, but to listen to the voice of your own reason. It is in solitude that you can examine your thoughts without external influences, where you can practice the dichotomy of control and where you can reaffirm your principles. Reflective reading. Stoics did not read for entertainment, but to instruct themselves and strengthen their minds. Read the texts of the philosophers, not to memorize them, but to internalize their principles and apply them. Read slowly, reflect on each idea and how it relates to your life. Living in the present with full awareness is a fundamental Stoic practice. Our judgments about the past, regret, and the future, anxiety, are sources of suffering. The Stoic strives to anchor themselves in the only moment where they have power, the now. Attention to the present moment. Pay full attention to the task you are performing, the conversation you are participating in, the sensations in your body. Do not let your mind wander to past or future worries. Radical acceptance of the now. The present is all you have. Accept it fully without wishing it were different. In that acceptance, you will find peace. Finally, the daily practice of Stoicism manifests in constant and virtuous action. Philosophy is not merely an intellectual pastime, it is a guide to living. Apply the principles. Every interaction, every challenge, every decision is an opportunity to apply the dichotomy of control, to question your judgments, to practice acceptance, to exercise virtue. Be a philosopher in action. Demonstrate your philosophy not with words, but with your actions. Be an example of calm, resilience, and righteousness for others. Your virtue is your best argument. Progress, not perfection. Recognize that the Stoic path is a journey, not a destination. Do not seek perfection, but constant progress. There will be days when you will fail, but the important thing is to get up, learn, and continue applying the principles with discipline. Every attempt, every mistake, is an opportunity to strengthen your character. By integrating these daily practices, you will transform your mind into an impregnable fortress. You will become the architect of your inner peace, capable of navigating life's storms with wisdom, serenity, and an unshakable purpose. This is the true freedom that Epictetus bequeathed to us, the freedom of your own mind. We've reached the end of this profound journey through the timeless wisdom of Epictetus, a manual for life in a constantly changing world. We have unveiled the essence of his practical philosophy, which invites us to build an impregnable fortress in the only place where we have absolute control, our mind. We walked the path of the dichotomy of control, learning to wisely discern between what is within our power and what is not. We understood that the true source of our disturbance is not external events, but our own judgments about them, giving us the power to choose our response. We embraced the acceptance of the inevitable, recognizing that by loving our destiny, we free ourselves from the anguish of resistance. We discovered that virtue, wisdom, justice, courage, and temperance is the only true good, the only inalienable possession that guarantees our happiness. We learned to discipline our desires and aversions, aligning them with reason to find immense freedom. We explored how to live with virtue in our relationships and in society, and how to mentally prepare for the challenges that life inevitably presents us, building unshakable resilience. And finally, we saw how the daily practice of self-examination and awareness are the pillars for living with purpose and serenity. Epictetus's philosophy is not a set of rigid rules, but an invitation to a life of personal mastery. It does not promise an existence free of problems or pain, but it does offer you the promise of a life without self-imposed disturbances, a life where your tranquility resides within you, unaffected by external storms. The deepest and most lasting freedom is not found in the absence of physical chains or difficult circumstances, but in the sovereignty of your own mind. The art of living, as Epictetus taught it, is a continuous practice. Every day is an opportunity to apply these principles, to strengthen your reason, to choose virtue, and to cultivate a peace that no one can take from you. It is a journey of constant self-discovery, where mental discipline becomes your greatest ally. Thank you for accompanying me on this immersion in Stoic wisdom. We hope that Epictetus's teachings serve as a compass on your path to serenity and fulfillment. If this audiobook has resonated with you and has brought value to your life, we invite you to be part of our community at Path of Knowledge. Your support allows us to continue exploring and sharing these timeless teachings. We encourage you to subscribe to our channel so you don't miss future guides and reflections. If this content has been significant for you, please give it a like and share it with those you believe could benefit. See you next time.